Okay, and we can start. Okay,
Yes.
so hello, and let's since you recently released a long lost single from the Bastard, let's
Absolutely.
start with the very beginnings. So because history of Bastard may be short, but it was incredibly interesting. So let's start by talking how the band was formed and how the lineup came together.
Okay. Well, basically, the band was formed. We were, if you want, we met through other people, so that was basically it. But Nobby, the drummer, and myself had been in a funk soul band a few years before that were touring the UK, and uh, that fell apart. Then I got into a kind of experimental jazz psychedelic band, which wasn't going anywhere. And then Nobby came up. He'd met Brian, and anyway, I can't remember the exact details, of course, but basically we suggested that because we were all a bit fed up with what was happening, and anyway, we got together in Brian's bedroom, if I remember correctly, and played a few tracks together, and then we got on well. So we organised. We got Des got I think is it got a rehearsal room together. It could have been Des or Nobby, I can't remember, and Copsal, and and we rehearsed and we gelled quite well. Started writing a few songs. We did a few gigs, and that seemed to and the concept that we had of quite aggressive rock and a bit of theatre thrown in sort of seemed to please the audience at the time. There we are. I don't know if that answers your question there, but there we go.
Yeah, and Bastard, like you said, played some concerts. You played in pubs, you played in bikers clubs.
Yeah.
What were those concerts like, and how many original songs did you have back then?
Back then, I think we had four or five original songs. Um, basically something like that, and the rest were cover versions of stuff. Rock. I think we did a couple of Iggy songs and some Eddie Cochran, that kind of thing. Quite you know jumpy songs, if you want, that get the people going. Yes, basically that was the. But as I say, when we started, obviously we had nothing. We took us time to compose uh, the few songs that we did record, and which actually we recorded three songs. I said this on a couple of interviews. The two songs that we recorded, which is Comfort and Doctor Gone. Um, were actually composed in the UK, but the third song was a song composed in Belgium, which will never come out. It's got nothing to do. If you want, it's got yes, it's part of the band, but it's not a track that's representative of what we were doing at the time. So,
And you also played some shows in Belgium. So what can you tell us about these concerts?
well, I what happened was that I started working in a recording studio in London called Morgan Studios, which is in Willesden. It's quite a well-known studio, and they decided because of the tax reasons that artists were recording in the Chateau d'Hérouville, in Holland, Hilversum. Anyway, all the bands were recording there for tax reasons. If they could prove that they recorded part of the album abroad, then they were taxed less in the UK. So the boss of the studio decided to open a studio in Belgium. So I came over to Belgium because it was a decent thing for my career, if you want. And I chatted with the band. They said, "Well, why don't we come across with you?" So they came across with me, and that was the how can I say the direction. And then, of course, we met a few people over here. There were a few places like Florio's and things like that, which were alternate rock places, and we got in played a few gigs. Not an enormous amount, but we still played quite a few gigs, a few in Flanders and a few in Wallonia, and that went on fine. We met a few really nice musicians, really great guys, and they were into the kind of stuff we were doing, which was, how can I say, aggressive rock. Of course, these days, between what was aggressive at the time and what's aggressive now is not quite the same thing. But there we go.
And like you said, you had a really interesting image, which reminds me a little bit of a psychedelic scene with the crazy world of Arthur Brown in the forefront. Where did the idea came from to dress up like this, like a horror figures?
It was the whole band. I mean, everybody, we all decided to have a personality, and we each found a way of doing things. We had a friend, because I used to be carried on in a coffin at the beginning of a gig. Yes, okay, but so it would sit there on top of the stage, in front of the stage, and then suddenly I would appear out of the screaming out of the coffin. So we had a lot of showbiz stuff. I would take halfway through, I would take all that stuff off because it was pretty warm inside, and put something more t-shirty, if you want, on, and there we go. So it was there was a lot of theatrics. We change into different personalities, and that came from the whole band. I mean, we were we liked that, and of course at the time there were things like Alice Cooper and things like that, which were all using a little bit of theatrics on stage. So we did take some influences from those things.
And eventually, you ended up in a studio recording Dr. Gong and Comfort. So, what was the recording process look like for this single?
Well, like any normal band. I mean, I got permission from my boss, who was the owner of the studio, that I could take some time to record my band. I presented him the tracks after we'd recorded, and he wasn't interested because it wasn't his style of music, so it's not a problem. And but it was a normal session. I mean, obviously a late in the evening session after all the main day work was done. And there we go. We all got into the studio. Obviously, it took a bit of time. We did a few sessions because the band had to get used to. They've never recorded in the studio. I mean, it was it's quite an experience when you're certainly in the early 70s to go into a recording studio. These days, everybody has one at home, but I mean, those days it was kind of a big thing. So we did a few kind of rehearsal things in the studio, and then we recorded it and overdubbed the bits and pieces that we had to do, and that was it. The only thing is, Dr. Gone and Comfort were recorded in one session, and the other song was recorded on a separate session, but that's the only.
And how did this recording ended up sitting in a closet for so many years? How was it rediscovered?
Well, basically, it was recorded. I gave a cassette to everybody because that was the only way to do it at the time. Everybody got a cassette. It seemed that everybody kind of the cassette went into a drawer somewhere or got lost with the moves and getting married and the other bits and pieces. There we go. So I mean, I still had the tapes, the quarter-inch tapes, and in 1995, I opened a mastering studio, which is Electric City Mastering, and I had quarter-inch machines and stuff to do for clients who came in with tape at the time. And I thought, that's ridiculous. I've got these tapes upstairs, but other tapes as well, but for more nothing to do with me musically. There were things that I'd recorded myself, and I said, well, why don't I digitalize them? I mean, it's so I did this. Well, let's say it was 2000, something like that. I put it onto digital files, and I'd say I kept them. I must admit, I don't think I sent them to anybody at the time. I just put them away, and then I did send, I believe, in the early 2000s, and let's say 9 or 10, maybe. I sent a copy to Brian, saying, wouldn't it be quite interesting if we brought this out? And he said, yeah, it might be a nice, interesting thing to do. But we'll wait for a while, because he was bringing out the book. He was doing an autobiography, or whatever it's called. And so maybe the idea was to release it with that. And then, I mean, nothing came of that, if you want. And then with Brian dying, I thought, well, crikey! I mean, this track has been, or these tracks have been sitting here for a while. So I gave Mina a call, his wife, Brian's wife, and the other members of the band. I got in contact with them again, and asked if they agreed to that we try and find a record company to release it. And because after Bastard, I'd done a band, well, a couple of 2-3 bands, but basically there was Feather, Rollerball, and then El Tomatillo. And Wop Shawop had released Feather, because there'd been interest on eBay and stuff like that with the original copies, because it was El Tomatillo, early El Tomatillo, if you want. So I'd already told them about these tapes a few years ahead when Feather came out, and they kept coming back to me to say, well, so I went to them and said, look, the band seemed interested in releasing it, and they agreed. And then we waited for the pressing plants to be able to have space to press us.
And shortly after recording the single, the band ceased to exist. So what led to this decision? Why the band split up?
Well, I mean, it was about after recording, it's got to be about a year and a half. Basically, nothing was really happening in Belgium. I mean, we got into the scene, but the scene was so small that we didn't seem to be moving forward. There wasn't interest in the tracks we'd recorded, because Belgium was still, how can I say, very too nice, as the scene. So it was the first one was Des decided to go back to the UK. Brian and Nobby stayed, and we got a couple of bass players. One of them was Yves Kengen, who stood in for Des, and that worked fine for the few gigs that we did. And then Brian decided to go home, and Nobby stayed because he'd met a girl, and they got married, etc., etc. They're living in the south of France now. There we go. So that was the band kind of dissolved, if you want, through lack of interest. We were just a bit too early, let's be honest. I mean, that's basically the the story of our lives.
And a little time later, after the Bastard, Brian James co-founded The Damned, and their
Exactly. Yeah.
single "New Rose" is considered the very first
Yeah.
UK punk rock single. But from what I've read, the main riff for the New Rose was written during the Bastard days.
I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to go into that kind of thing. It's not. It's not. He obviously. I mean the Damned. Even you just look at the dressing up and the whole thing. The basic concept is kind of Bastard, but not taking away anything from what they did. It was great. I mean, it's. They had the energy, they had the thing, and Brian wrote the song, so no hassle on that end. That way.
But he had some ideas that he later used in the.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, what we did was there was no no stealing or taking things away or saying. But yes, I mean, Bastard were the Damned a little bit earlier, if you want. That's basically it. So, and again, not taking anything away from them. They absolutely were there at the right time. Brian was there at the right time with his ideas and his style of playing, which was always very punchy and up front and there we go. So I mean, we were too early. I mean, it was as simple as that. Let's not, you know, music is about that, isn't it? I mean, you sort of you make records, but I mean, there's 100 records that we've all liked, and then only a couple of years later, the people decided that this was great, and they became hits.
And the press release mentions names like MC5, Alice Cooper, The Stooges. Were these bands like a source of inspiration for you? Or maybe we should mention some other bands, other artists?
No, basically that was the bands that we played each other, to each other, if you want. I mean, I can't remember. Let's be honest. Details like that are kind of very hazy. I can make something up for you, but I'm not going to. So.
And with the release of this single, should we like rewrite the history of punk rock, or maybe you weren't there yet with this songs?
Rewrite? No, I mean that's. I mean, I think I've still got somewhere. I've got a CD-ROM of the Microsoft history of music, and in that Microsoft history of music, Bastard are mentioned as the pre-punk band. I mean, we were one of the pre-punk bands. I'm not saying we're the only one there, but we certainly laid the ground in the UK, and not so much in Belgium, but certainly in the UK. We did all the concerts we did, which were always, quite. I'm not going to say, but they were quite aggressive and collaborative events. It was something that wasn't happening at the time in the UK.
And in a few years, we've got the Damned, we've got the Clash, we've got the Sex Pistols. Could you felt back then in the air that the music revolution is coming?
Did I feel it? Not really. No, no. We felt we were out on a limb. We were doing our thing, and we didn't care. We didn't want to be like the others. I mean, that was part of the whole ethos of Bastard. It was no.
And the single is already sold out. It was recently released, and it's already sold out.
I don't know. I
Uh,
don't.
did you expect this kind of interest?
No, because as I say, this is for us. If you want the what's the name I mean, what the record label did say, they thought there was going to be interest in this, and I'm fine, and I'm glad. I mean, let's be honest, it's not. I mean, must be about the 10th interview I've done, and it's amazing that people are interested in what we did. I mean, makes me happy. I mean, and the rest of the band as well. I mean, they're all. They're kind of we're all on the waning side of our lives, and it's amazing that we've influenced that many people.
And are there gonna be some kind of re-release?
That's up to the record label. You have to ask them. I mean, it's. I mean, well, obviously they've made enough to be able to be able to repress. That we'll have to see what they decide.
And like you mentioned before, after Bastard, you had a few bands, and eventually you ended up as Elton Motello.
Yeah,
Should we
correct.
consider it like a solo endeavor or full-fledged band, or maybe like an Alice Cooper, a full-fledged band turned into solo?
No, no. Basically, it was Mike and myself, Mike Butcher and myself. I mean, we are the first iteration of the band. Nobby, the drummer of Bastard, was in the band. He played on most of the tracks, not all the tracks, because I think a couple of tracks, Twink from the Pretty Things did a couple of tracks. But basically, Nobby did all the rest, and there was the bass player was a friend of ours from the UK. It wasn't theirs. and then we had a few guest musicians in, but it was Mike and I who kind of wrote most of the songs and arranged them, and there we go. So that was the first album, and the second album we decided to go a little bit more what was happening at the time. So it was more progressive, if you want. I don't know. It was less. It was still rocky, but it wasn't punky. But punk had passed by that time, so it was 1982 or something like that, or 80 maybe the album. I can't remember the second album. So we decided to do something more moving forward, which is so I used other musician friends, but Mike and I were the basic foundation of of El Tomatillo, and always have been, in fact.
And what's the story behind Jet Boy, Jet Girl? Because none of the band's regular members played on it.
That's not true. Mike played on Jet Boy.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that was basically it was a track that was recorded one night with John Valk on bass, Bob Darsh on drums, and Mike. I did the vocals. It was the producer, because there was a producer called Lou, and he wanted to do some rocky stuff, punky stuff at the time. I did the vocals like the next day, and then he presented it to his record label, and they said, "Yeah, yeah, but in English, etc." So let's do a French version. There we go, and then it went. That's what happened. What happened, and I'm not going to get into any details about that. Plastic did an amazing job of selling that, and 100% hats off to him. He's a great artist. It's so. But I'm not going to go down. The any confrontation about that track. I mean, that's the basic story.
Yeah, especially that when you went into music engineering, working as a producer, you also worked for Plastic Bertrand.
Yeah, exactly. I did all these albums exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and did you heard about the controversies between Lou and Plastic? Because there were some even they even ended up in a court.
Hold on, hold on. I've somebody's
Yeah,
calling me. I'm gonna have to. Um, okay, we're back. Are we back? Yes, you're back.
yes,
Okay,
we're
sorry.
back. Did you heard about the controversies over the vocals on the French version? Because Lou ended up with Plastic even on court in court.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm not going to. Oh, for crying out loud! And there we go. There we go. I'm back. There we are. I'm back. Yes, I won't go down that road. It's as I say, Plastic sold that record 100%, and he is really the guy who made that into something. I mean, it's he is really uh, the catalyst that made Ça plane pour moi the hit that it was.
And like I said, your musical career later took a completely different turn. How did it happen that you put down the microphone and started to work as a producer engineer?
Well, as I say, I was working as a recording engineer at Morgan in London, and then I moved to Morgan in Brussels. The Morgan in Brussels came to an end in the mid '80s. For about 10 years, I was a freelance recording engineer. I worked in France, in Holland, in Belgium. So, I mean, doing sessions, I had no problem there. I had lots of work. And then a friend of mine suggested that we do, because I was already doing, at the end of doing an album with a group, I was digitally putting on a machine. I was putting the tracks together, getting the levels equal. It wasn't really mastering, but was kind of like preparing, because there was no real mastering at the time. Preparing the tracks so that the album sounded good, and a friend of mine said, "Well, why don't we open a studio to do that?" So we did that. He After a couple of years, he decided to get out of it, and he sold his shares. And I continued. So this opened in 1995, and I've been open as Electric City Mastering since 1995, and I've never stopped. I mean, it's really I've been very lucky in my life.
Yeah, you had like 1,000 records.
Yeah, if you look on Discogs, I mean, it's and that's just a small proportion. I mean, the unknown people are not there. It's really it's
Yeah,
one of those.
yeah. I took a glimpse on these records, and you work with The Gathering, with Keith Caputo from Life of Agony, with Agnostic Front, with Hooverphonic. So what are your favorite recordings from your career?
Oh, no, no, no! I don't have a favorite, because having a favorite means there's a lot of other people who are not favorites, and I don't go down that. There are, I mean, we the thing is as well, as an engineer, the there are bands where I've really enjoyed myself, but the records weren't hits, and bands where I've got on with the music and stuff that which weren't hits, and vice versa. Anyway, it's one of those. Being on the technical side is something that has nothing to do with what sales and promotion and what's name do. So it's got nothing to I don't have any. Preferences or things, best bands or best people to work with. That most people are, and I'm really most people are very nice. Even the ones that have an attitude when you see them. It's when the lights are turned off, they become other people. So mostly, so.
And this is all that I have prepared. So thank you very much for your time, and have a good day. And at the end, you can say something to Polish fans of early punk rock era.
Well, we were, yeah, this is be there, do it. Don't give up. Put it that way. It's music is and communicating with the audience, because that's what a punk band, a rock band that we did. It's not about being pretty. It's about, yeah, with the audience. We're there together, and I think that should continue. That's more important than sitting on a stage and being pompous.
Okay, again, thank you for your time, and have a great day.
Okay, bye. Cheers.
Bye.